depends upon material things, comes out of the childhood.
There's access to education. There's also access to money, which she's keen on.
Yes, she's very keen on money, and she thinks a lot about money, and she writes a lot about money, and money is one of the great themes of A Room of One's Own. She was left a legacy in 1909 when she was 27 by an aunt who she didn't like very much, and the legacy was 2,500, from which the interest would have been rather less than £500 a year, but it was enough to give her a few. Wanted and needed to earn her own living, and she and her husband Leonard Wolf had a bit of capital, but they were not wealthy, and they both needed to work, and they did work very hard all their lives, and she was tremendously pleased when she got her first cheque for her first year in 1905 from the Times Literary Supplement, which was a cheque for £2.7 and 6pence. At this point she thought, right, and now I can be, now I'm earning, now I can be independent. She didn't actually start making much money from her books until the period we're talking about, the late 20s, but earning the money was wonderful to her because she could then buy things. So she bought a room of her own with the proceeds of a room of one's own. She built an extra room on the edge of her Sussex house. So, earning and having money was incredibly important to her, and it's a very important part of the narrative of the book.
Yeah, thank you very much. Alexandra Harris, the book A Room of One's Own was published in 1929, but she published her first novel well before then. Can you tell us briefly the books before A Room of One's Own?
Yes, by the time we get to 1929, the shelf of Wolf books is very large. She's written 6 novels and a really large body of essays. She's been writing essays for 25 years. This is a really established writer. She published her first novel, Voyage Out, in 1915. It's a coming-of-age novel.
She had a few mental breakdowns when she was young.
Yes, she had, and indeed between the finishing of her drafts of the Voyage Out and her publishing of it, she had a breakdown. So to come back from that and to bring this novel into the world was a great rite of passage. She then, during the First World War, writes slowly but absolutely determinedly a novel called Night and Day, which is a comedy in many ways and plays with the forms of comedy. It sees a young woman coming out from under the shadows of the Victorian house of inheritance. But we've come really to think of those first 2 novels as exercises in the conventional style in a way, and she felt that she really came into her own and found her own style with Jacob's Room in 1922, which is a fictional portrait of a young man, and it's blown into fragments. The pages are half empty. These little shards of 50-year story of Ethan time right up to the present of 1928. This person can think back through time and experiences what it is to be a writer. And this is what we're going to get in one's own. This questioning of how can you be a writer in reforms of elegy, they're all war novels, they're all post-war novels in a sense, thinking what have we lost, what's broken here, and they're all novels about inheritance. How do we find a shape to express what we've inherited, and then we build something new?
Thank you, Michelle Barrett. She goes to Cambridge, but she's invited there by some very fancy girls to give lectures in 1928. This is a great Room of One's Own. Can you tell us a bit more about the background and what happened there?
Sure. The background was in 1928. She was invited to the Art Society at Newton College and also to a group called the OTOP, which is short for one day after another, and Goethe. And we went to Goethe, and instead of going with her family, and as it were, statement she makes about identifying with homosexuality. And certainly it's very interesting, there's somebody who was there in the room. Goddess is descended from a sort of establishment dinner with the German girls. So there are two social occasions, and I think because it's the sign that Wolf was very carefully negotiating the central politics of her time.
Is there anywhere where she left notes as to what she wanted to achieve?
I don't think so. I mean, there are comments in her diary about what she said and how it went down. I have to say, what she says about Vernon didn't go down terribly well with people who were because she draws this very unfavourable contrast between a lunch that she had the following day, in fact, at King's, and a dinner at the women's college. The women's college gives you gravy and prunes, and had wonderful, wonderful concoctions. This didn't actually go down so well, but it was part of her. I mean, no, not quite. But she, I mean, I think it must be said that an awful lot of the arguments, what comes across as arguments, are actually exaggerations, and they're done to, there are some caricatures in there which are done to reel the reader in.
At that time. Did you have an impact at that time?
Well, I don't, as Michelle was saying, I don't think the lectures as an event in themselves were exceptional. Well received. In fact, I talked to an elderly lady when I was writing about being one of the students. She said the room was very hot and very dark, and Virginia Woolf was a bit inaudible, and she was terribly sorry, but she slept all the way through the lecture. If only I'd known, she said to me, it was going to be a room of one's own. So I think the event itself didn't have a huge immediate impact, but what immediately started coming out of it, which was an essay called Women in Fiction, and then the essay that was published about a year later, immediately did have a very big impact.
Yes. Hermione, let's talk about this work then. She says, in the Living Lecture, she says, call me Mary Beaton, Mary Seaton, Mary Carmichael, or by any name you please. It's not a matter of any importance. Why did she say that?
Yes, that's so interesting, Mary Beaton. So there's a ballad, there's a 16th century anonymous ballad, Scottish ballad called The Four Marys, and I need to quickly tell the story of that in order to show how it works in the book. So it's the song of Mary Hamilton, she was one of the Queen's ladies in waiting. They're all called Mary, and she's had an affair with the Queen's lover. She's got pregnant, she's killed the baby, and she's going to be executed. And she sings this song which says goodbye to the other Marys, who are called Mary Beaton, Mary Seaton, Mary Carmichael. There used to be four of us, she said, now there's only going to be three. So Virginia Woolf takes this very ruthless, cruel, legendary story, partly because she wants Wollongong to be like a fiction, or like a fable, or like a legend. She doesn't want it to be a set of hard facts. She wants to remain an entertainment. So that's one of the reasons. Another reason is that she has horror all the way through the essay, and indeed when she's writing her fiction of saying I. When she's writing fiction, she talks about wanting to get away from the damned egotistical self. And I'm afraid she does associate that very often with male writers.
Exit the roundabout 12A46.
Getting in between you and the light on the page, because the male narrator is always talking about himself or being sort of bullying or hectoring. And in her view, that goes from Milton to...
Continue on A46 for 1.5 miles.
She wants to distribute the narrative through these legendary women. And also, I think it's very important because she has an idea of community, of works not being single masterpieces, having a single solitary birth, but works of fiction and works of writing coming out of what you inherit from your mothers, thinking back through your mothers, being part of a community of women, and that sense of a community as opposed to a sort of ego is really, really important. And the other thing, the one other thing I want to say about Mary Beaton, Mary Seaton and so on, whom she gives to the names of the head of the Cambridge College, or the woman who's writing the new novel for women, or the narrator of the book itself. The other reason I think she's so fond of that trope is because the ballad is anonymous. It's a non, and she's fantastically interested all her life in Anon. Who was writing the works of Anon? She says in the essay, I would guess that Anon, who wrote so many poems without signing them was often a woman. And when you get to the very end of Virginia Woolf's life, she's writing a history of literature called Anon. So